All right, so we're almost done with the nervous system. Okay, so how do signals get detected by the nervous system? Again, you have those things, those changes in your environment you call stimuli. So these are the sensory stimuli and your visceral stimuli. Again, they're sensory. You can sense both your external and internal environment, and they both end up at some sort of sensory receptors. And again, in this case, we're talking about not only the cells but also the proteins that detect it. And remember, this is where it gets a little tricky in this actually both books, where they kind of like switch between the cell definition of a receptor and the protein definition of a receptor. So again, always keep that. If it sounds confusing, that's because yeah, they use receptors for both definitions. And then you have the afferent or afferent division if you want to make it not sound like efferent, but again, A goes A before E, right? So you have your afferent fibers leading to your central nervous system, and from the central nervous system, you have the efferent, right? The efferent division and the efferent fibers. And then we cover the somatic nervous system. And the somatic nervous system, what is that in a nutshell? So what we have here, hey, remember those upper and lower motor neurons we covered just before the break? And where do they innervate on? Skeletal muscles. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about the somatic nervous system. Now what we have here is our motor neurons, and remember there's upper and lower motor neurons. And those lower motor neurons, or actually when you have a motor unit, what do you have? You have a motor neuron and you have all the skeletal muscle fibers that make up the muscle part of the motor unit. So what do motor neurons secrete onto skeletal muscle fibers? Again, that was exam 2 topic, and that was acetylcholine. And then again, it causes skeletal muscles to contract, and then you have all that depolarization of the skeletal muscle and all the action potentials on the skeletal muscle and all that muscle contraction from calcium release. All of that good stuff from exam 2. All right, now we're going to talk about the other part of the efferent division, and we're going to talk about the autonomic nervous system. If you're using the open stacks, I believe it's chapter 15, and then in the Martini version, it's chapter 16. So those chapters are pretty consistent compared to the rest of the previous three chapters. It's a lot more consistent between the two books in this case. Because you have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system, and those are the stars of our lecture today, actually the next 2 lectures. And what do they control? Pretty much everything else. So again, we have skeletal muscle in the somatic nervous system, but the autonomic nervous system, we have smooth and cardiac muscle. Again, 3 main types of muscles. So we have our skeletal muscle, the smooth muscle, and the cardiac muscle. So again, skeletal muscle by the somatic nervous system, and then smooth and cardiac by the the autonomic nervous system. Then we have our glands and organs. So autonomic. So again, even though you can be kind of aware of your organs, you can't tell your organs like you can't tell your like stomach, okay, I want you to churn just once, or you want to tell your part, I want you to start, I want you to stop, I want you to start. It's kind of like it sounds like autonomic sounds like automatic, right? So that's kind of what it is. Your organs are controlled by this autonomic nervous system. Right, so that's the autonomic nervous system, or chapter 16 in Martini, chapter 15 in OpenStax. Okay, so the autonomic nervous system, everything that's pretty much not the somatic nervous system. So we have the 2 other types of muscle and other types of glands and cells as well.